God bless this land, and He opened its doors to bring the true faith to its native shores. He planted His church, as an infant she grew. From the lands across the ocean to this land which is new. Her past has convinced us that though she be tried, with new brilliance she rises when love and truth abide. We stand at the threshold of 200 years, fulfilling the vision, allaying all fears. We must rise to the challenge in this land that is free, doing God's will, our American destiny. We must rise to the challenge in this land that is free, doing God's will, our American destiny.
The Council of the Orthodox Church in America, held at St. Tikhon's Monastery in the beautiful autumn days of October 1970, was of greatest significance for Orthodox Christianity in North America. In the words of Father Alexander Schmemann, those eventful days in 1970 were days of light and joy, when, having canonized the first American saint, Orthodox Christians in America moved to the establishment of a self-governing church. There was great excitement and enthusiasm among those present, a sense of promise fulfilled, of a new and wonderful future that seemed within reach. 7 months earlier, on April 10th, 1970, Patriarch Alexis of Moscow and all Russia had signed the Tomos, the official document granting self-government, or autocephaly, to the American Church. With sincere and profound joy, we announce to the fullness of the Church the successful and final formation of autocephaly. We entreat the all-powerful blessing of God upon the younger sister in the family of local autocephalous churches, the Autocephalous Orthodox Church in America. A delegation led by Metropolitan Theodosius, then Bishop Theodosius of Sitka and Alaska, officially received the Tomos in Moscow on behalf of the American Church later that same spring. In accepting the decree of its mother church, the 14th Council convened by the American Missionary Diocese of the Russian Orthodox Church became the first council of the new Autocephalous Orthodox Church in America. For some, such a solemn and historical step was controversial. Yet the need and the desire of Orthodox Christians in America to have their own self-governing church was not something new. It was present in the minds and hearts of its people, especially its leaders, from the very beginning.
O blessed Father Herman of Alaska.
The first Orthodox missionaries came to North America in the autumn of 1794. Among them was the man destined to be the first saint of the American Church, the monk Herman, who was officially canonized at ceremonies in Kodiak, Alaska in August that same eventful year of 1970.
Together we lift high the Holy Cross.
Metropolitan Irenee led the canonization services together with the late Archbishop Paul of Karelia, head of the Finnish Orthodox Church. Countless priests and lay people joined in the joyous celebrations for the humble monk Herman, helper and defender of the oppressed. The hope that this small mission among Native Americans, Aleuts, Eskimo, and Tlingits would one day grow into a self-governing church for all Americans was the dream of another of the earliest and perhaps the greatest Orthodox missionary priest in America, Father John Benyaminov. later elected Metropolitan of Moscow. Veniaminov himself was glorified as a saint of the church in 1977 as Saint Innocent of Alaska, the apostle to America. In an 1867 letter written upon learning that his beloved Alaska had been sold to the United States, Saint Innocent outlined his dream. A rumor from Moscow has reached me that I had expressed great displeasure concerning the selling of our colonies in North America to the Americans. This is absolutely not true. Quite to the contrary. I see in this event one of the providential ways by which our orthodoxy can penetrate into the United States. If asked, I would recommend the following measures: that the American bishopric not be suppressed, that the residence of the bishop be transferred from a new archangel, that is Sitka, to San Francisco, that a new bishop who knows the English language be appointed to America, that his staff be manned by people who also know the English language, that the bishop be allowed to ordain to the holy priesthood American citizens who have converted to orthodoxy, and that the bishop and the clergy of all the parishes be permitted to celebrate the Divine Liturgy and other church services in English. It is self-evident that the service books should be translated into English, and that the courses in the newly established schools for the training of missionaries and priests should be taught in the English and not in Russian, which sooner or later will be replaced by English. Saints Herman and Innocent were not the only saints to witness in America. A second member of the original missionary team, Saint Juvenali, became the first Orthodox martyr in America. He was soon followed by Saint Peter the Aleut, a young Native American who also died for his faith. In the almost 200 years of Orthodox presence in North America, countless Orthodox Christians have dedicated their lives to plant orthodoxy in this land. The Orthodox Church in America was indeed born, as all Christian churches have been born, from the very beginning, by the blood of her martyrs and the sacrifices of her servants. Yet another early leader of the American mission will soon be canonized, Tikhon, the Patriarch of Moscow and all Russia, who served as bishop of the American Missionary Diocese from 1898 to 1907. When Tikhon arrived in New York as a 33-year-old hierarch, he greeted his new priests with these words: "With love I come to you, brethren. Receive me also in love. I trust that you will do me valuable service in my ministry by your knowledge of this country and its people, by your experience, and that you will be really and truly my co-workers of sound judgment and counsel." And then he greeted the lay people. "It is not only from the pastors that I request assistance and cooperation, but from my entire and beloved flock. The Apostle Paul wisely likens the Church of Christ to a body. The body is not one member, but many, and to everyone is given a gift." Bishop Tikhon served as the head of the multi-ethnic and multilingual American Missionary Diocese for 9 critical years. During his tenure, the number of parishes increased threefold, from 29 to 93. The number of clergy doubled. The first Orthodox seminary in America was opened in Minneapolis, and St. Tikhon's Monastery was established in South Canaan, Pennsylvania. In the words of one co-worker, Archimandrite Raphael Hawawini, pastor of the Arab Orthodox parish of St. Nicholas in Brooklyn, Tikhon was truly a shepherd sent here to tend the whole flock of Christ: Russians, Slavs, Syro-Arabs, and Greeks, the flock which is scattered across the entire North American continent. Hawawini himself was destined to become the first Orthodox bishop to be consecrated on American soil. Ordained by Tikhon as a vicar bishop for the American Missionary Diocese, Bishop Raphael ordained countless priests and deacons and consecrated numerous churches and institutions, including the grounds of St. Tikhon's Monastery and Orphanage. Many people hope that Bishop Raphael, too, might be formally counted among the Church's saints in the near future. Much of the rapid growth of the missionary diocese in this period can be attributed to the personal efforts of Protopresbyter Alexis Toth, one of Tikhon's most dedicated co-workers. Resting today in a place of honor at St. Tikhon's Monastery, Father Toth began his ministry in America as an Eastern Rite Catholic priest. Toth came to Minneapolis in 1889 to serve thousands of newly arrived Galician, Carpatho-Russian, and Russian immigrants. Rejected, however, by the local Catholic bishop, Toth led his people and parish back to the Orthodox Church in 1891. Over the next 20 years, Toth traveled extensively throughout North America, reuniting thousands of Eastern Rite Catholics with the Orthodox Church. More than any other factor, the zeal and dedication of these returning Eastern Rite Slavs to Orthodoxy laid the foundation for the expansion of the missionary diocese across North America. In 1907, Tikhon was called back to serve the church in Russia. Regretfully taking leave of his New York co-workers, Tikhon thanked them with these words. "We acted and worked together. In some matters, I initiated things, inspired you, and you in turn went out to bring my ideas to life. In other matters, on the contrary, you suggested the thought to me, and I am not ashamed to admit this, and I found the ways and means to realize your idea in practice. I appealed to you for common work from the very beginning, and my appeal was not made in vain. If something has been accomplished here, it was not I alone who accomplished it, but we together. It is self-evident that the Lord God helped us." Later, Tikhon reminded them to stay true to their missionary vocation. "For each of us, the dissemination of the Christian faith must be a favored task, close to our hearts and precious to all of us. In this task, each member of the church must take an active part." And in a final farewell, he sought to encourage them. "Many times I have told you that the more I study the history of the Orthodox Church in this land, the more convinced I become that our task here is God's task, that God Himself leads us. Just when it appears that everything is about to collapse, our mission, instead of dying, rises up in new strength and brilliance." His words were to prove prophetic. Next to the grave of Father Toth in St. Tikhon's lies a second monument, the final resting place of a man who not only personally experienced but came to symbolize the American Church's difficult path through the troubled times that followed Tikhon's departure. Father Leonid Turkevich served the Church in America for 3 turbulent decades as priest, and for 3 more decades as a bishop, archbishop, and finally as Metropolitan Leonti. Father Leonid Turkevich was ordained a priest in 1905 in Volhynia, Russia, by Metropolitan Anthony Khrapovitsky, who himself became famous as the founder of the Russian Synod in exile. Called by Bishop Tikhon in 1906 to be the rector of the first Orthodox seminary in the United States, and later as cathedral archpriest in New York City, he presided over the first council of the missionary diocese held in Mayfield, Pennsylvania in 1907. A tireless writer, Turkevich stressed in his countless articles the need to work together. "It is necessary that everyone would work, each according to his own good measure of strength, for the common benefit. Everyone must offer his or her knowledge of the local people, their life, needs, concerns, sufferings, sorrows, to the common work. Everyone must have at least the smallest amount of Christian self-denial, love and dedication to the Lord Jesus. Each person in his solitary state is weak and poor, but in our unity we can find among us not a little means for the precious and holy goal which we all desire. Why not pour together into one all of our small power and our little free time, that our overall work may be strong and fruitful?" 10 years later, Turkevich was chosen to represent the North American diocese at the famous All-Russian Church Council of 1917. Speaking to that historic assembly, which elected Tikhon as the first patriarch of Russia in almost 200 years and set forth a program of reform for the whole Russian Church, Turkevich became known for his advocacy of the special needs of the American diocese, including the need for greater autonomy, the use of English, and the new calendar. The hopes of the 1917 Council were to be brutally crushed by the Bolshevik Revolution and then the opening of the communist campaign against the church. Fleeing from the Bolsheviks, Turkevich returned to America by way of Siberia in 1918. In the wake of the revolution, however, even the church in America was plunged into chaos. Direction and support from Russia ceased. Funds were cut off. Seminaries were closed. Theological libraries were sold. Publications were curtailed. The missionary diocese went bankrupt. Church properties were confiscated by the new Soviet government. As priests were evicted from their rectories, including Turkevich and his family, hundreds of court cases ensued. Thousands of sorrowful immigrants, not only Russians fleeing the Civil War, but Greeks exiled from the catastrophe in Turkey and Orthodox Arabs fleeing the Muslim Middle East, arrived penniless in the United States and Canada. In the following years, the unity of the American missionary diocese collapsed, and scores of Orthodox jurisdictions, some based on ethnicity, others on politics, others based solely on personalities, were created. From a human perspective, it was a hopeless situation. In the face of civil war raging throughout Russia, Patriarch Tikhon decreed in 1922 that dioceses cut off from the central administration should organize their own life. In order to save the American diocese from the Soviet government and their agents, many suggested that the diocese declare itself self-governing temporarily. This controversial and, in hindsight, momentous decision could not be taken lightly. At the Council of 1924, Father Turkevich, whom contemporaries call the soul of the Council, led the whole diocese to an understanding of its American destiny.
Should we, the builders of the church, be afraid of trouble and grief? Should we cover ourselves with faint-heartedness? Should we despair in spirit and lose hope? Or should we stand aright, stand with fear, that our service be without reproach?
The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of autonomy, and with this decision for self-government, the American diocese was set irrevocably on the road towards autocephaly. Personal sorrows, however, followed public triumphs for Turkevich. In 1925, Father Turkevich's beloved wife, Anna, died, leaving the young priest with 5 children. In 1933, the widowed Turkevich was elected Bishop of Chicago with the name of Leonti. He continued his work for the church through the turbulent 30s and 40s, never failing to maintain the position that the Metropolia, as the missionary diocese had come to be known, should not only retain its autonomy from Moscow, but pursue its calling to be a church in and for America. In 1950, in the midst of the Cold War, with anti-Russian feelings strong in America, Leonti presented the opening address of the Council, which was to elect him as Metropolitan. His words on that occasion remain a perfect summary of his pride in being a Russian American, but also of his commitment to an American church.
We did not give birth to ourselves. We are not without roots. Our mother is the Russian church from which we came into human history as a mission among the Gentiles, as a diocese on a new continent, as a complex of dioceses among non-Orthodox peoples, as a church into which have entered and taken root peoples from Asia and Europe, from Russian and non-Russian lands. We all love our homelands. We love and honor and respect our mother Russian church, but as a grown-up daughter church. We will therefore, according to our possibilities, objectively, carefully, and without rushing to conclusions, carry out our historical path to the very end, to be the basis for the existence of an Orthodox Church in America.
During his 15 years of service as primate and metropolitan, Metropolia began to experience an extraordinary liturgical and sacramental renewal. Church education flourished on every level. The seminaries of St. Vladimir's and St. Tikhon's, which Leonti had been instrumental in establishing, enjoyed remarkable progress, largely through his personal interest and support. The Metropolitan was a founding member of the Standing Conference of Canonical Orthodox Bishops in America and a strong supporter of the work of the Orthodox Christian Education Commission and the Orthodox Campus Commission, pioneer movements of inter-Orthodox cooperation in North America. Leonte always envisioned the American church as a hierarchical and conciliar body. Our church here, he stated, is freely constituted in and by its church councils. We move from council to council, freely, radiantly, joyfully, actively, with friendship and vitality. God and His power are with us. In 1960, the Romanian Orthodox Episcopate, under the leadership of Bishop Valerian Trifa, joined the Metropolia, marking a first concrete step towards reestablishing administrative unity among Orthodox in America. In 1965, at the age of 89, Metropolitan Leonte fell asleep in the Lord. In his sermon at the funeral, Father Alexander Schmemann described the aged Leonte's last visit to the Metropolia's Council of Bishops in the fall of 1965.
In a soft voice, hardly able to be heard, Leonte said that he was giving them his final word. He expressed his sadness that too much time was being spent on routine things, on everyday affairs, on petty issues. Aren't we able, he asked, to look higher and further? Ought we not to be discussing the question of the furthest perspectives of the church in America? At a time when people prefer to look to the past and to the future only with indifference, Metropolitan Leonte was already searching out the future, and in his heart, he was already there.
5 years after his death, the future which Metropolitan Leonte sought began to be fulfilled. In 1970, the Metropolia, now led by Metropolitan Irene, received its autocephaly. 1 year later, the Albanian Orthodox Episcopate, founded by Bishop Theophan Noli, who had himself been ordained a priest in the missionary diocese in 1908, joined the new Orthodox Church in America. In 1972, the Orthodox Exarchate in Mexico was established under the leadership of Bishop Jose. In 1976, the Bulgarian diocese, under the leadership of Bishop Kirill Yanchev, joined the new church. In 1978, the former missionary diocese itself created a missionary diocese in the South. In the 1980s, the Orthodox Church in America, under the leadership of its first American-born Metropolitan, Metropolitan Theodosius, faced new opportunities and new challenges. In 1983, at the 7th All-American Council, Metropolitan Theodosius spoke of dangers facing our witness to contemporary America.
The religious options in Western societies are two: denominationalism or sectarianism. We see that some Orthodox accept a sectarian self-image. Others accept, at least implicitly, a denominational self-image. I believe that our generation of Orthodox Christians is challenged to search for patterns of churchly life and structure which will be faithful to the Orthodox experience and understanding of what it means to be neither a denomination nor sect, but the church, apostolic in faith and Catholic in its universal witness.
This search for a universal witness has led the Orthodox Church in America into taking an ever more respectable role, both in North America and abroad. At home, the OCA is a constant advocate of Orthodox unity, solidarity, and inter-Orthodox cooperation. Through the National Council of Churches and in dialogues with the Roman Catholic Church, Anglicans, and Lutherans, the OCA is presenting a strong Orthodox witness to the larger Christian community. The All-American Councils provide that strong bond of continuity that inspires these efforts towards an authentic Orthodox witness in the modern world. In Philadelphia in 1983, Metropolitan Theodosius affirmed this:
I am convinced that the All-American Council is a living icon of the truly Orthodox understanding of church order. the members of the Holy Synod are united here with the clergy and the laity of the Church to discuss together and resolve together the issues which we face together.
The Orthodox Church in America now stands on the threshold of its third decade of autocephaly, of its third century of witness in North America. Generations of saints and martyrs, of faithful bishops, priests, lay men and women have struggled to plant orthodoxy in America. Their witness remains the foundation of ours today. Their vision of a united conciliar church, powerfully witnessing to Christ, remains our vision today. And their hope of one Orthodox Church in America for all Americans remains our hope for today and for tomorrow.
We must rise to the challenge in this land that is free, doing God's will, our American destiny. We must rise to the challenge in this land that is free, doing God's will, our American destiny.